Hi everyone, welcome. Today I want to share how I prepare as the lead learner in our homeschool each week, and more specifically, how I prepare as a tutor for community days with classical conversations. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I am Crystal, homeschooling mama of 3 girls ages 7, 4, and 1, and we homeschool mostly with classical conversations. I have been a tutor with classical conversations since I started the first year. I kind of jumped in out of necessity, and we love classical conversations. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing how I prepare for that every week. So whether you are a homeschooling lead learner in your home with classical conversations or you tutor, I hope that you're able to find some things that are helpful in this video. I'll be sharing my planning method, my favorite resources that I use each week, and some of the tips that I've learned along the way from rookie mistakes that I'm hoping I can spare you from to make your process with CC go smooth and with ease. So if you're interested in classical conversations, tutor prep info, and just having a mom-to-mom or parent-to-parent share, then grab yourself a drink. My favorite drink of choice is bubbly water, and let's jump right in. So, one of the first things that I do in tutor prepping is review what's coming a week or two, maybe, in advance. And I'll familiarize myself with each of the memory facts that we're learning. And if there's something that I'm not familiar with, then I might do a bit of research just to make sure that I have a grasp on understanding what we're covering so that I'm prepared to give that information properly. Okay, so that's the first thing, obviously, is just turning to the current week that we are getting ready to tutor for and making sure that we are familiar with the information. Once I review everything, then what I'll usually do is I will go and plan the review method that I'd like for every single subject. So for math, what method am I going to use to present skip counting the twos? If there is a method that I've used in the past, I will generally try to stay consistent with keeping that method, unless for some reason I've been introduced to a new method that I think works a lot better. Then I might change it up. But for the most part, I try to stay consistent through the years because math and timeline repeat themselves every year. And so I try to just stay the same so that I'm not confusing myself or my kids from the first way that we learned it. And that way, it also is just kind of compacting the information in by drilling it in the same way every time. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I'll figure out my review method. If I don't have a review method for math or whatever subject it is that I haven't used in the past, then I go to different resources like online. I start with reviewing my CC app and see what they show on the app. Then if I need a resource for like an idea, then I'll pop on to CC Connected. Now, if you haven't decided to be a part of CC Connected, I would say for 100% it is worth the $6, or as a tutor, $3, $4. It's very minimal per month. For what it will give back to you in terms of resources and information. So I will quickly pop on to CC Connected, and under the file sharing in CC Connected, you can type in any subject, any cycle, any keyword, and it will bring up loads of ideas that other CC parents have created or come up with and uploaded to CC Connected that you can use as ideas. So there are visual aids, there are tunes, there are motions. I mean, the ideas are endless. It's amazing what all is on there. CC is such an amazing group of people who have so much to share with each other, and you'll find that on CC Connected. So use that as a resource. That's my number one. If I don't find something there, then I do sometimes refer back to Facebook. They have a tutor page that you can opt into, and lots of people share great ideas on Facebook. You could also do Pinterest. There's so much on Pinterest. If you just type it in there, CC Cycle 1, Week 1. CC Cycle 2, Week 3. You just put in what cycle we're in and what week you're looking for, and loads of information will come up. And if you're looking just for one specific subject, then you just add that into the search. CC Cycle 1, Week 3, History. And that's how I will search online. I'll put in those search terms and see what comes up. Obviously, YouTube is huge. That's where my main source of looking and learning is YouTube. So I will go into the YouTube search bar and put CC, Cycle 1, and whatever week I'm on, and look specifically for a subject, or I'll just put in CC Cycle 1, Week 3, and leave it general if I want to get information on all the subjects. So that's how I typically search to prepare for methods if I don't already know exactly how I want to present a certain subject. Before I do that though, you as the tutor, you probably have ways that would be fun for you, songs that you resonate with, motions that you resonate with. So one thing that I do find that is really effective is to work with your kiddos if and when you can. If you're preparing at night and you can't, that's fine. But if you do have time during the day or during your week to present some of these things to your kiddos, it's actually really fun to ask them, what kind of motions do you think would be good for this history statement or for this word? What should we do when we say this? Or what tune would you like to sing this week's geography with? We're learning about this particular area. What does that make you think of? And so it's fun to collab with the kiddos if and when you can. So I will go through each subject that way, figure out if anything pops in my mind or if there are any songs that I think I could put it to. And if I do, then I will go with that. If I can't, then I'll go to researching using the methods that I just shared. After I find the method that I want to present it in, then I will actually make a note right in my handbook. I know that a lot of people say, oh, I don't like to write in my guide. I like to write in my guide because I want to be able to refer to it in years to come. I want to have the information as I learned it the first time, and I want to continue reviewing it that way for as long as we're going to be reviewing that information. And if I write and make notes in my guide, then I always know I have it right there when I need it. So I will go down and say, okay, for math this week, we're going to review to the tune of Jesus Loves Me. And I always put in quotations, what tune am I learning that to? For English, I'm gonna do it to La Cucaracha, and this is what I'm gonna draw on my board. For history, I'm going to do hand motions, or whatever method, I always will just write and make those notes that I want to make sure that I refer to in class. And so I do use my handbook that way, and I think that it is beneficial. You've paid for this, you're gonna keep it around. I don't plan on selling this later. I know that I want this as a resource in my household for years to come. So I wanna make sure that I'm saving all the things that I'm learning. Not only that, but I did not start tutoring right out the gates. So the first 6 weeks of our first year of CC, I got the privilege of just being in class with my daughter, my oldest daughter. And even in those weeks, I would bring my CC guide to class and just take notes of how the tutor presented it so that way I could do it that way at home throughout the week. And I think that's why the intention of why CC has area for notes, and even down here, space where you can put notes. Now, as a tutor, I now use this space down below for notes for me as I'm prepping on things that I need to remember to bring. So for instance, if during history I'm gonna use shakers to go along with the tune, then I'll put a note down here for me to remember to bring shakers, or remember to bring a flashlight, or whatever items I think of as I'm doing that prep for the week. I'll use that section for notes of things that I need to remember to have on hand when I tutor. So that's really what I do there. Once I have each subject figured out and the method of how I'm going to present it, then I go through and I put a check mark by that subject so that I know, okay, I'm done, I've got that subject covered, I can move on to another subject to research or figure out how I'm going to present. So that is how I do the prep work for memory work. Check it off in my guide as I go. If you don't want to write in your book just to keep it protected, I totally get that too. Some other ways that you could document along the way, I have seen things like this where you could print out from CC Connected where it has all of the subjects, and then you can prepare 6 weeks in advance and just write down all the things that you have planned. For something like this, you can use the year in advance page that CC provides in the handbook, where they share the year at a glance. And so you can go through and just prepare 6 weeks in advance. That's my hope in the future. I have not done that yet, but that would keep things smooth throughout the weeks of the year because you already have a plan. So I've seen things like this. I've also seen things where people have provided templates where you can just plan for each subject for 1 week at a time. And it gives you a lot more space next to each subject to write out whatever your thoughts are, your plans are. CC Connected has a lot of those things. Even if you just go type in the search bar, tutor plans or tutor prepping, tutor planning templates, things like that, you can find stuff like that as well as an option for tutor planning. So speaking of tutor resources, this is one of my favorite resources. For a beginning tutor, I think that this would be very helpful, something like this. I think that you can find this on CC Connected. I will try to link it if I can find it again. But this is basically a stick in the sand toolbox. So it gives you things to remember, activities that are inspired by Lee Borton's suggestions from her book, The Core, and just a couple simple notes. And then it gives you all throughout it just ideas on how to present English, different games, different things you could do. Also gives you, for fine arts, some ideas of how to do fine arts, how to do geography. Takes you through each subject and gives you ideas of how to present that information. Some notes on presentations, things to share as a tutor, timeline. So it gives you a lot of different information in this toolkit, and I will see if I can find this and link it below. This is a great resource for tutors. And just for even teaching classical conversations at home as just a homeschooling parent or lead learner, this is great information. After I've got my memory work prepped, I generally go to preparing for timeline. Now for timeline, we like to stick to the hand motions that CC provides on CC Connected. Most of those are ASL motions, some of them are not, but we like to keep it consistent that way. I guess this started with my first community because the director actually wanted us, all the tutors in that community, to be consistent so that the families were learning it the same way. So ever since then, I just always stick to those same hand motions. So when I first started tutoring, every week before tutoring, I would go on to CC Connected and make sure that I reviewed all of those motions, just to make sure that I had them correct, and also to make sure that I had the understanding behind the motion, so that I could explain that in class if needed. Another thing that I do when I prepare for a timeline is a lot of times I will try to use the timeline card and look at the information on the back of the card. They always give like a rundown of what that particular timeline card is referring to. And if I'm not familiar with it already, then I take the time to try to read the back of that card when I can, so that I'm familiar with what that particular timeline is referring to. Undoubtedly, there are questions that come up in class, and I just want to be prepared. Not that you will always know everything or that you have to as a tutor, right? We are people and we are not computers or search engines where we know everything off the top of our heads. But it is nice to be prepared how we can, and reviewing the back of those cards is helpful. One tip that I will share is that a lot of times in class, there's not even a lot of time to go into explanation, and I don't think that's the intent of class during our CC memory work time. I mean, we're trying to bust through those really fast. You've got to go through everything 7 times, and you only have half an hour to get that information in. So there's not a lot of time to do a ton of explanation, but if we do have kids who ask questions and need more information, as a tutor, it's okay to say, that's a great question for your mom or dad during school this week. And they will be the best to answer those questions in a lot of detail and to go in depth. So remember to use that as you're tutoring. It's okay to refer back to the parents. And sometimes you just need to, because there's just not a lot of time to go in depth like you'd want to in explaining a lot of things. So that's what I will say for timeline, reviewing hand motions and reviewing the back of those cards, just to familiarize myself with the information. And I will use that as a side note to say that that's one of the things that I love about tutoring, and about homeschooling in general is that a lot of this information we're learning with them. It's okay for things to be new for us too. And as the lead learner, you get to learn it first. So it's really interesting and really fun to be able to take some time to read some of these things and refamiliarize yourself or learn them for the first time as you're preparing to present them to all the kiddos. Okay, just a side note, that's just one thing that I love about CC is that we get to learn with our kiddos. Okay, after that timeline review, then I make a list once I've got all the subjects planned out, how the method that I'm going to present them with. Then I will make a list for myself of items that need to be gathered, whether things needed to be printed, or I have items like shakers or little figurines that I'm going to use, pointers. I will make that list down here, and then once I'm done preparing everything and planning, then I will go and gather all of those items and make sure that I get them packed into my tutor bag. Later in this video, I will be reviewing some of those things that I do try to bring along with me in every class, and I'll review a lot of the things that are my favorites to have on hand that I might rotate throughout the year. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, I pack my tutor bag and I have a going list of things that I need to make sure before I leave each week are in my tutor bag. And so that is, I like to use a Bluetooth speaker so that we can listen to the timeline song and the history song, and a lot of the songs that CC provides, I try to play those in class just so that we make sure that we're all on the same page and we hear that. So I try to introduce it with that song that CC provides. So I bring my speaker, I bring my guide that already has my lesson plan and all the methods of presentation on it. I bring anything that I have printed for that week, and then any items, side items that I might need for the memory work presentation. Pack my board, and then whatever review game I've planned, or even things like chocolate chips or any side things that you're going to bring. So I get that all packed ahead of time as I'm preparing for tutoring that week. And then the night before, I will put that bag at the front door right away just to make sure that it's right there, ready to go. I don't have to look for anything the morning of, and it makes things go a little bit more smooth. For my board, I am going to flip the camera around and show you how I do a board. I recorded the last time I prepared my board, and so I'm going to share that with you here. One tip that I will say is that I like to have the magic erasers and a glass cleaner on hand for my board. I have found that glass cleaner works so well in getting all that like week-long residue of the dry erase markers. So just a tip, magic erasers and glass cleaners work really well to get stuff off if you've had a hard time cleaning your board after leaving it on for a week. So one of the biggest parts of tutor prep is the board. For my board, I usually start and have on hand the large dry erase markers and the smaller ones, and then I have found that these magic eraser sponges work really well for cleaning the board and getting all of the scuffy marks off that try to stick around, especially if you've had it on for over a week. So those are the tools that I use. I always break out this week's page of our memory work so that I can copy it exactly as it is in our guide onto our board. And then for my board, I usually start with keeping my timeline cards at the top. We do math over here, and then for history, I try to keep it in the middle because it's the largest section I have on my board, but I usually try to go and Google just a clip art, easy picture that I can find that applies to that week's history. And I try to draw a little picture that goes with it there. Sometimes we have more room for the picture and sometimes less, just work with what I have. And then science, I usually try to draw something that applies to that, if it's applicable. And sometimes I'll draw a little image that kind of serves as a reminder for what tune we're doing. In this case, we are going to learn a preposition to the tune of La Cucaracha. So I'm drawing the cockroach, which is what La Cucaracha means, with the shakers, just to help us remember that. So this is how I start with preparing my board. Then I practice using my board. So once the board is completed, then I will go through each subject looking at my board as though I'm presenting it to the class, and I'll just run through it one time just so that I feel smooth with how everything's going to be presented on the day of. Usually by the time I get to that point in my prep, I know that everything's ready to go. For science and fine arts, I will always refer back to how we prepared in our tutor meeting and whatever notes I took or whatever notes were provided from our director. And then I will just refresh that at the current week when I'm preparing for the week. And so whatever notes we took, however we plan to present that information, I'll review it at that time. Then I'll also check out CC Connected has the sandbox learning, and on there they have hands-on science videos to explain every single week. So I'll take a moment to review that science video. If you want even more depth, Nicole Liam's science printouts that she provides on CC Connected are amazing, and so I usually try to review what she has prepared on her printout, all the information there, and then use the pictures that she's provided. Our director actually prints these out for us so that we have those, but I know that every community is different, and so just make a point to review however you covered it in your tutor meeting. And then just a side tip for me to you is that Nicole Liam, her science preparation and worksheets are amazing to review as a tutor. They give you the gist of the science project and the experiment, and then she also puts on there some of the talking points that you would use as a tutor, and then over here how what we're learning relates to the different weeks in CC and what we've covered already and maybe what we're going to cover in the future weeks. And so she kind of ties that all in, and then also she takes you through down here just a more in-depth explanation of understanding whatever information is being reviewed for that week. So her stuff is great, and she always provides excellent pictures to see as well for science. Okay, then I will plan my review game after I've prepped all of that. I have a whole video on CC review games, so if you are interested in review game ideas, be sure to go and check that out. After I've got my review game done, then the night before I will go and make sure that I set out all the items that we need. So my tutor bag, my tutor board, and then of course all of my kids' backpacks. Now in their backpacks, I make sure that they've got whatever they're gonna need for their presentation. If we're on tin whistle, they've got their tin whistle, and then also their water bottle and any snacks that they need during presentation time, as long as it doesn't need to be refrigerated. I try to get all that packed ahead of time. And then I also make lunches and snacks that night before as well, so that all that prep work is done. And all I have to do is grab things out of the fridge and take everything that's already by the door. So that's a nutshell of how I review. Before class, when I get to class, I will set up the board and I will pull everything out that I know that I'm gonna need that day. So if I'm using egg shakers, they're going to be in front of my board on the table, or my pointer that I use to point to each of the subjects and all the things for memory work. I usually have my guide out as well so that I can refer to that for tune reminders or anything I need as I'm in the middle of tutoring. Then I'm all set to go. So for the next part of this video, I want to share just a couple rookie mistakes that I have learned along the way, and hopes that maybe you can learn from them too. So one of them is to make sure that if you use visual aids or printouts or different things that you've prepared, I know for math, I've made little drawings or different things that I've used in tutor memory work review time. Make sure that you keep those things and maybe organize them as you go throughout the year. I did not necessarily organize that well my first year of tutoring. I kept it all together, but I didn't really have an organization system. And this year, I'm recircling through cycle 1, and I have definitely wished at times that I had prepared everything in a nice binder with each week separated out. That would be great. So this week, or this year, one of the things I'm using is this accordion file organizer. And as I go through everything each week, I put it in its own slot for the week. And that way, it's all there. I like having the accordion because it's got folders that are bigger to hold different things, not just a sheet protector that you can slide things in, but it's got bigger compartments. So that has worked well for me this year. But I've also seen tutors who have binders and everything is slotted out by different dividers and things like that. You can get little sliders that zip lock. So there's so many good methods for that. But the key with this is organization. Be sure to help yourself out by filing all those beneficial resources that you print so that you don't have to reprint them, you don't have to go research for them. You have them all together in one place for the years to come. Okay, the next thing is I used to have a tutor bin that I thought I needed to keep everything in, and I would bring it every week. You only need to bring what you need for that week, and that's something that I've just learned over time. If you plan well and you plan ahead of what you're going to be using, then you only need a few specific things that can fit in your tutor bag just for that week, for those 7 subjects and exactly what you're covering that week. So you don't need to bring it all. As tutors, we are already bringing so many things every week with your board, your tutor things that you need, lunches, all the kids' bags and everything that they need. So it can be a lot. And so save ourselves some stress by just minimizing what we're bringing each week and keeping all the other things that you don't need every single week, like all your review games or all the things that you pull from for memory work review. Those can all stay in a compartment at home, but just bring the specific thing that you're bringing for that week. And then the last thing I have here is to set the tone for your class ahead of time so that there is a way that you can bring control back as a tutor and that the kids know that ahead of time at the very beginning of the year. So for instance, I think my first year I used something like flat tire and then everybody goes shh. This year our entire community is doing the gimme 5, where when the tutor or leader says gimme 5, everybody in the room puts their high five up in the air. And it starts with you're counting down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each of these have a meaning, right? Eyes on me, listening ears, and so forth. So we're all going like this. And by the time we get to 5, it should be quiet in the room. Also, just be sure to have fun. Tutoring is such an honor to be able to bring this information and learning in such a fun way. It's such a privilege and an honor to be able to be a tutor. And so just be sure to have fun along the way because it is fun. Learning is so fun, and your kids and the students you teach are going to vibe off of what you give. And so if you're having fun, they will have fun. It doesn't have to be so serious. It doesn't have to be anything big that we make it. We want to enjoy the process of learning all of this information. So be sure to have fun along the way. Those are just a couple tips that have helped me along the way. I hope that they're helpful for you. Now I want to turn my camera around and show you a couple of my favorite tools that I do use in tutoring, and hopefully they will be helpful to you. Okay, so here are some of the things that I keep at home to use as I am tutoring. And so here I have just a small drawer of things that I might pull from throughout the week. This holds my looking eyes. I like to keep those for using for geography or anytime that we're having to point to something specific. Then I have, in the next drawer, I have my memory work cards. These cards are amazing. They basically just walk you through how to review any given subject or memory fact point. So do it with volcano words, which means you start as a whisper and then you get louder until you reach the end of whatever it is that you're saying. Farmer Ted, use your farmer accent. Robot, how about like a mouse, or clap each syllable, strike a pose. So you say it with a certain pose, right? Hula words, read each word while doing a little hula dance. Your Royal Highness, do it in your best British accent. And then we have, let's see here. Oh, like you're a sports fan, so you say it like you're cheering each word. And then the last one is your favorite animal at the zoo. So those are fun. Those are super easy to pull out for any subject where you have a list of things that you're reviewing for memory work. And this one, I guess I missed that one, is say it with a low voice. The next thing I have in here are these little cubes. I use these when we skip count the cubes. You can also use those if you have printouts or things that you're using and you want the kids to have a little holder, like a pointer to use. I also have these little mini figurines that we use sometimes for geography. These I have found at little boutique shops just throughout time. This is just a few of them. My kids actually like to play with these on their own, and so these are the few that I have tucked away right now. But these are great because they're super small and you can fit them on small locations to use for on a map. So those kind of things are super fun. Now, none of these are an absolute must-have. These are just tools that I'm sharing that I happen to have and I've collected over the past 3 years. These are little frog hoppers, the kind that you put down and then you can push on it and the frog hops. I like to use these for review sometimes. And then these are, here are finger puppets of many different kinds. I think I've got like 10 like different animal ones, and then these are the kinds that can shoot off of your finger. But finger puppets are great for things like reviewing Latin, doing even math. You can find so many different ways to use finger puppets with memory work. And then the last drawer down here, I have wet erase markers, popsicle sticks, and sticky notes and things like that. So this is kind of like my tutor bin. And then I have made egg shakers. I keep these in a Ziploc bag because you never know when you're going to have to pull them out, and it's nice to have them all together, especially since we're working with classes of 8 kids at a time. Sometimes you need to have that many on hand, and so I try to keep those in a plastic bag. These are jingle bells and different things like that we use for noisemakers. We also use the tambourines that you can find at the dollar store or whatever you have in your own music collection. And then I like to have a blow-up globe that we will use at different times for geography, especially when we're learning latitude, longitude, the points on the globe. So I keep the blow-up globe. You can also use blow-up globes for review, many different ways to use that. And then balls. Sometimes we will do kind of like a hot potato and we'll use a ball to pass around as we're reviewing different things. And then in here I have our CC review cards. These are awesome because it will give you, I'll just pull some out. On the front of it, it tells you what cycle you're on and what week you're on. And on the back of it, it tells you the answer. So you can use these in so many different review games. You can just flip through them for review. These are great for Jeopardy. I tutored for 2-3 years and did not have those, and I just purchased them this year, and I think they're a great resource to have. And then these are just some tutor dice. So the way that I would use these is you roll 1 dice for the subject to tell you if it lands on a 5, you're doing history. And then the other dice inside would maybe tell you what week you're going to review for history. So this is a fun tutor dice because it has 2 in 1. So you could use the one inside for the week and the one on the outside for the subject, or vice versa. And then I have the smaller version of that. And then I found this. This is also a review dice. So you could say, okay, we're going to review this, and when we do, we're going to say it while we're doing jumping jacks, or we're going to hop on 1 foot like a flamingo, or we're going to flap our arms like a bird. So this just gives lots of different options of how we're going to review each subject. I also like to keep chopsticks around, or something like toothpicks, because a lot of times when we're reviewing geography, the maps and the locations that we're looking for can get pretty close and tiny. And so we need tiny little pointers to be able to point those out on the maps. And so toothpicks or chopsticks or things like that are nice to have on hand. And of course, my handy dandy pointer. I use this every week for pointing to whatever subject we're reviewing. And this also I got from the dollar store. They have them in different colors. I have a pink one, blue one, but we use this even for reviewing at home. These are fun little tools to have. So, And that's kind of my tutor arsenal that I use in terms of ways to review. I do keep lots of review games and things that have worked over the years. Jenga is one of my favorites. I got this at the dollar store, and you just basically write on the back of them subjects and funny things. So as you're playing the game, the student will pull out a block, you'll review that subject, you pick the week, and then they stack it back on top. And then I will put fun things in here on the back of them too, like this one is dance party. But you just go through them and then do whatever the block says. Review whatever the subject is or do whatever the funny thing is. That's a great way to review. I don't want to go too much into review games in this video. I have a whole video about that, but this is just some of the things that I keep in my tutor box at home to pull from that help with review on different weeks. Okay, I think that is everything. I'm so glad that you made some time to watch this video. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to shoot them my way. I always say that our best resource is each other. So if you have tips for other tutors as well, please share them in the comments below. Share them with me. We are all in this together and we're learning back and forth. And so I would really love it if you would take a moment to share any of your favorite tips as tutors and questions, whatever you have. Let's just all connect in the comments. I will try to link as many of my favorite resources that I've used for tutor prep down below. So be sure to check out the description box if you want some links to websites and resources that have been helpful in tutor planning as well. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel if you are interested in more videos like this or memory work videos, anything homeschooling. My desire for this channel is just to be a help to other homeschooling parents and just to share things as God leads in faith, homeschooling, and just family life. So if you're interested in any of that, please be sure to subscribe today. And that's all. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day and I will see you in the next one.